My name is Musa Adnan, that's Ustadh Asif Uddin. This is ReRooted, and here's what we have coming up today. So one thing about iERA and the people who work here, I basically know what everyone does.
Yeah. But you don't know what
You're
I do?
Actually the only person
God.
who I don't know what you exactly do. I know that it's research based, but that's all I know.
Okay. So I'm here to
you're pretty quiet.
Raise the morale, tell jokes, listen to other people's conversation, and try to use a word that I could use to make some kind of pun or make some kind of joke. I have a very strange kind of dyslexia. It's related to my memory. It's related to I when I write sentences, I tend to miss out a word, and then I have to sometimes read something 2 or 3 different times. And he was saying you got a degree and a master's, how did you get through that? And
Subhanallah.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But I done another master's since.
Wow.
In Islamic Studies at SOAS. Hajj is basically a preparation for the Day of Judgment. It's basically we're in a play, right? And we're in a play of the Day of Judgment, except that it's like a dress rehearsal for the Day of Judgment, except the actors are different, right? And it's just
Assalamu alaikum, Ustadh Asif.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
That was the fake salam because I already gave you salam
Was it?
a minute ago.
That's alright. Cool.
But you got to do it for the camera sometimes.
Take 2. Personal joke.
Was that?
Take 2, personal joke.
I just got that.
It's going to be a long interview, man.
It's going to be good. It's gonna be
loads of jokes.
Inshallah. So one thing, brothers and sisters, if you don't know about Ustadh Asif Uddin, mashallah, he's a teacher. You teach you've taught with different institutes. You're one of our people here at iERA, alhamdulillah. You've been here for some time. One of the things that you need to know about Ustadh Asif is his puns, his jokes. They fill up the office. I was trying to think of a pun, but I'm not as fast as you, for fill up. But yeah, they fill up the office. Since we're talking about the office, how do you find the office environment here at iERA? Yeah,
so alhamdulillah, I've been here for about a year. And
really?
Yeah.
No, but I've been here for nearly a year.
Did we start at the same time? I started before Hajj last year.
No, I think you've been here maybe a few months over me.
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, I've been here. It's about a year and a bit.
Okay.
A year and a bit. And alhamdulillah, it's I had a dream, or not a dream. I had a dua that I made in my heart about 10 years ago when iERA started.
Okay.
And I was working at Kodak at the time. And I remember where I was. Stop laughing. I remember where I was at Kodak. I was working as a business analyst and SAP stuff.
Really?
And I made dua in my heart. Oh Allah, please, I really want to work with this organization.
Okay.
And when I have these kind of these internal duas that I make, they tend to become true. Yeah. Or I have dreams that come true, right? So I actually have things that happen to me in my dream, and they end up coming true. Which is, I don't know. I don't have many dreams, to be honest. Not dreams as in where I want to go in life, right? Dreams as in when I'm sleeping.
Some people watching this are gonna think, Ustadh Asif Uddin a piro.
Exactly. Yeah. So 10 years ago, I had this thing. I said, Ya Allah, I want to work with iERA. And subhanAllah, it just came, man. So I was working at Kodak, and then I worked with another Islamic organization, Hajj and Umrah, and then another Islamic organization. And then, alhamdulillah, I was, dream fulfilled.
So one thing about iERA and the people who work here, I basically know what everyone does.
Yeah. But you don't know what I do?
You're actually the only person
God.
who I don't know what you exactly do. I know that it's research based, but that's all I know.
Okay. So I'm here to
you're pretty quiet.
Raise the morale, tell jokes, listen to other people's conversation, and try to use a word that I could use to make some kind of pun or make some kind of joke.
And then you go home. That's the job done.
Alhamdulillah, I work part-time, so I'm working 3 days a week with iERA. And the other 2 days I'm supposed to be working on my PhD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, supposed to, because I just end up doing other stuff instead, which is not good. But alhamdulillah, I'm making good progress on my studies.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is that I'm working the education research kind of part of iERA, and I'm there to check the publications, so I make sure that everything is robust and Islamically consistent. So there was a book that I reviewed that was written by Abu Zakaria on the forbidden prophecies. So I had to go through every single thing that he mentioned and make sure that it's referenced correctly, that it's really Islamically correct. If it's, if there's any suggestions that I can come up with, I had to make sure that nothing's plagiarized. Sometimes when you're working over a project, you may just mention a couple of things here and there, and you just don't realize that it's actually someone else's words, and maybe you didn't change the words enough over some simple definition or stuff. So to make sure that everything is, correct. So other than reviewing the publications, also developing arguments. So one of the arguments that tends to be a little bit undeveloped in the English language related to da'wah are those things connected to prophethood. So I'm doing a lot of research on prophethood. Why do we need a prophet? Why is it that not everyone can become a prophet? Who can become a prophet? What are the conditions for someone being a prophet? What are the characteristics of someone who's a prophet? So I'm looking at all of those different arguments, and then inshallah I'm going to be looking at something else.
Inshallah. Now that sounds really, really interesting actually, now that I actually know what you do, in a full thing. Because if you guys saw Ustadh Asif just comes in, you generally keep yourself to yourself other than jokes and stuff like that, and you just get on with your work, mashallah, tabarakallah. I think a lot of us need to be like that. Sometimes, some of the brothers, like Mohsin, he's got behind his chair. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Don't talk to me, because if you talk to me, I've got no self-control, and I'll talk to you for 2 hours, something like that.
That's actually, everyone, man.
Yeah, it
that's
happens.
Everyone.
It happens. I'm sure it happens in a lot of other offices as well. I think it's just the office environment. I really enjoy the office environment, personally speaking. Alhamdulillah, I think it's really good. And something that you've mentioned before actually to me is it's like a blessing working with people like in iERA. It's a very, very big blessing that I think we aren't grateful enough for. Working with people, it's like working with your friends, literally. And it's an absolutely beautiful environment. Speaking of puns and jokes and stuff like that, which is something that I feel like you're becoming notorious for. I don't know if that's a good thing. I
mean, social media, right?
Not in a bad way, obviously.
I only use social media just to put my jokes up there. Like I don't. If you notice, like the number of people that I follow or who are following me in social media is very low, and that's on purpose. I don't like the spotlight. I don't have a huge following on like. There's loads of people who send me like friend requests, and if I don't have a mutual number of friends with them, with 50 or 100 people, depending on how I feel on that day, I never accept them. And all I do on social media is just put my jokes up there.
I think it's refreshing to see you do that though, because the position that you're in, which is like as a teacher, as an ustad, as someone who gives classes, someone who takes Hajj groups, we're going to talk about that, and other things. I think a lot of people like that can be really, really like, kind of like, I was going to say, like, you know what I mean, right? Like
they push their profile a lot.
And they're very strict though. Like you won't see them joking and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Do you see? They kind of lose the human element.
Sure.
And I think it's really refreshing to see someone who's like that, but they've got different aspects to them. And I think it's really, it's definitely very inspirational to see that.
But maybe I've gone to the other extreme. I'm just to be honest, Twitter's a bit different. Someone actually found out who I am on Twitter, and then they started tagging me. They said, "Oh yeah, we know who this person is, and Ustadh Asif. If you got any, if someone needs advice, just go to him." And I was just getting DM'd all the time. It's crazy. Like there's this one brother, subhanAllah, he DM'd me. He made a fake account. Alhamdulillah, it's good that he did that, and he asked me like really personal questions. And Twitter's a really good way of actually engaging with people, and it's very easy to ask people questions. So I was just getting like really sad, crazy questions from some people who don't want to know, and they just want that advice, which I'm obviously happy to give.
SubhanAllah, it can be deep like that. Speaking of problems and stuff like that, I want to dig deep into your life yourself, because we have actually spoken before on this topic that we're going to speak about, and we actually decided to speak about this on the podcast. And I think it's very brave of yourself. May Allah reward you for coming out and choosing to speak about personal big issues you went through. Actually, because a lot of people, especially with issues, I mean, people are going to see it in the title, I'm sure, like divorce, like death. These things are really, really personal, especially if I say more so divorce, actually, because with death, it's like, when someone passes away, people find out eventually and condolences are given. But divorce is something really, really personal. very, very kind of taboo as well, if I can say that. Talk to me about this year that you call the year of sadness for yourself.
Yeah, so I did actually have like an Amul Huzn. I suppose it's easier to discuss these things, when it's actually happened some point in the past.
Yeah.
And I feel that I've grown, I've learned, and I feel that, when people need to develop through the experiences that they've gone through. So we tend to develop through our environment, but we also have to develop through our experience. So it wasn't just that I had a few issues, a few problems that I had in my life, but it's just that all of them happened in one short period, just one after the other, within a period of about a year and a half or 2 years. So the first thing is that a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was married before, got divorced. I was married to the sister for about 3 and a bit years. And it's a very bit of a strange one because we both didn't want to get divorced. It just happened. It just basically circumstances happen where we end up just parting. But I don't want to dwell too much into the situation because, it involves someone else. I really respect the sister, and it was amicable. And discussing these kind of things, she may not like me putting it in public.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe you don't put divorce under the tagline.
Okay.
So after that time, Qadarullah, I got really ill, going to see specialists, going to the hospital and whatnot. Things that I was actually hiding from my own family. Like my parents knew, but I didn't tell my siblings and whatnot, because they were so worried about me, about what happened to me during that period, that I didn't want to worry them even more. But alhamdulillah, I got much better. And then about a year and a bit after I got divorced, then my father suddenly passed away. And I have this thing in my mind, there's 2 ways that a person can pass away: suddenly, or you've actually know that person's going to pass away through illness. It's like
gradual.
Yeah, so I was thinking to myself, like, what's more difficult? I always have this conversation in my head, like, what's more difficult, dealing with sudden death or actually dealing with someone who's actually, who's actually kind of like, that they're going to pass away because of illness and whatnot. But anyway, so, I was working in the office, I get a phone call, asked if you need to come back home straight away, something's terrible's happened, you need to come straight away. And I had an inkling, but I didn't know fully the extent of it. Go home, my sister-in-law's then go to the hospital, your dad's really ill, get to the hospital, and then subhanAllah, just find out my father's passed away.
Subhanallah.
And I suppose it's really,
so it was like sudden.
Yeah, it was sudden. Like we went to like my cousin's son's aqiqah like the day before. The whole of the family were there, and he was completely fine, cracking jokes and whatnot, and as he usually does. And then to see him for the following day was really, to see that he's passed away the following day is obviously a huge shock to the system. But the circumstances also in which he passed away were really sad, in that we live behind a medical center, like a doctor's surgery. So my dad thought, as he's going through this heart attack, he thought that it would be easier if he were to go to the doctor. He can do all the tests and whatnot, call the ambulance, walks all the way there. Doctor crazily says that no, go back home and ring from home the ambulance,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's stupid. And so my mum is actually bringing my dad back to the home. They ring up, paramedic finds out, goes to the doctor's surgery, blasts the doctor, saying, "What the hell were you thinking?" And he just passes, unfortunately, on the way. But alhamdulillah, he did say the shahada before he passed away, which is an incredible blessing. And then also, my mum actually gave him Zamzam as well. So these are like good signs.
Yeah, these are good signs.
But I mean, the whole process of death is really difficult.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more difficult because I started to blame myself for his death. Because just the day before, he mentioned some of the problems that I'm going through.
Okay.
And I felt that I contributed to his death, which is obviously wrong, because everyone's time is fixed, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will take a soul, and it's not necessarily the things that led up to it, or it's important that when someone it's important not to self-blame,
Yeah.
And that's why qadr is so difficult. It's that in the Quran, whenever Allah mentions qadr, and he's mentioning qadr, which is a 6th pillar of Iman, he doesn't mention it alongside the other other pillars of Iman. So when he says that you should believe in Allah, the angels and the last day and all of that kind of stuff, and he mentions the 5 pillars together, but he never mentions Qadr. Qadr is always mentioned on its own. And even in the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, when the Jibreel alayhi salam asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Akhbirni ala al-iman," tell me about iman, and he said, "An tu'mina billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wa yawm al-akhir." He said that to believe in Allah and the angels and the book and the last day and so on and so forth. He doesn't mention Qadr with it straight away. He says, وَتُؤْمِنَ بِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِ وَشَرِّهِ, that you should believe in Qadr, the good and the bad, the evil consequences.
Interesting.
So he actually mentioned tu'min, or belief, specifically for the 5, and then specifically for Qadr.
Why is that?
I don't know, but Allahu Alam, my own tadabbur is that Qadr is the most difficult thing to believe in or to accept, and you need those 5 pillars to help you accept it, which is belief in Allah, belief in the angels and whatnot, to help you accept it. Yeah. Because it is really difficult. I personally met people who their fathers passed away and they, after 2-3 days are completely fine. And I'm like, I like say to them, like, how are you like this? Why? How is it that you can accept Qadr just like that? It's just strange, But for me, it took me a bit of time because of my circumstances.
Of course.
I know people whose fathers have passed away from 5 years ago and they're still mourning.
Subhanallah. I think that's even that within itself is part of Qadr. That's why, like me personally, I'm a very strong believer in dua, in the sense where I feel like whatever problem you're going through, dua is such a beautiful solution where you can just literally speak to Allah. Yeah. And there's things that we know help your dua to get accepted, like raising your hands, calling Allah by, for example, His name Allah or Rabbi, etc., and other things that help the dua to get accepted. And I'll give you an example of what you're speaking about. Sure. Actually, one of my really, really close friends, he was abroad for a specific reason. I don't want to mention too many details because it's kind of private.
Yeah, of course.
He wouldn't want people to find out who he is. He's fairly in the public, and he was abroad for a long period of time. And he randomly got a phone call. Your father's terminally ill. He came back, and his father passed away in 1 month.
Oh.
Like, so from before that month, they didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
That month, his father passed away. And what was crazy about that is I remember going there to the janazah and to the burial, and he was like laughing on the burial.
Ajib.
And this person is like a talib al-ilm, very knowledgeable person, and he was like laughing and like smiling, and like not laughing as in an insensitive way, but if you spoke to him, be like, it is, and when I spoke to him about it and I mentioned it to him, one of the times I spoke to him about it, he said to me, that month, I'm just happy I had that because I prepared him for his meeting with Allah. He said, I prepared him. So we went through everything, his debts, everything. He said everything was sorted and he went. He said, and he said, look, I'm dealing with my family. I've got to be the rock for them. Yeah. But it was shocking that if you looked at my face when the burial was happening, from the outlook, I looked more emotionally touched than him. So it's amazing how different people deal with it. Yeah. You mentioning it was very difficult for you.
Sure.
Self-blame is something extremely hard to live with. I'm sure a lot of people are going to relate with this. What else also happened in that year that made you call it what you call it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there were other things as well that happened. So for instance, when when my father passed away, one of the possible reasons of why he had this amount of stress was because he was trying to get a property, and then he bought the property, but he had to pay off someone like $100,000 or something within a short period of time, like 2-3 months.
Yeah.
So we had to raise, after my father passed away, we had to raise like $100,000 within really, really quickly. And subhanAllah, it's amazing. Alhamdulillah, I'm really, really blessed to know a lot of people. Yeah. And I'm really blessed to know people in the right places. Wow. So alhamdulillah, I know someone who's a doctor, I know someone who's this, and I know someone, like, for instance, it's really bad, right? So when my I got remarried, alhamdulillah, and I got a couple of kids. So, when sometimes like the queues right? And hospitals and GP, it's just crazy. It's like you have to wait there for hours, and sometimes you have to ring the GP within like a 15-minute window, and if you don't, then you don't get a. So then I just ring up my friends who are doctors.
That's so convenient.
So convenient.
Yeah.
And then I just ring them, and I basically said, look, my daughter's going through this issue, you know, I've got this thing on my thumb, you know, like, how do I get rid of it? And they just like tell me, so just you can get this from over the counter, just go to the pharmacy. So it just cuts out so much.
It's a big blessing.
Yeah, great blessing.
I got people like that in my contact list as well, alhamdulillah. And like one of my good friends, Yahya, he's just like there for me. He's basically a doctor. He's like last year medical student, basically, like he's there basically. So anything I got going on, I just call him and he tells me exactly what to do. Even like I remember once there was an incident about going A&E. I was like, forget that, 4 hours wait, let me just call him. He picked up, tells me what to do, it's all good, you know. So yeah, it's a big blessing knowing people like that.
So alhamdulillah, I was able to raise half that amount of money just through my friends.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a family, we've got like a few properties, alhamdulillah, but we can pay everyone back, but over, you know, like a period of time. We can't get all of that money in one go. So I feel that really changed, you know, when my father passed away. And we will talk a little bit about, you know, how to get transformations and changes and stuff. But I think when my father passed away, I stopped having the last child syndrome, because I come from, there's 5 of us, 5 children, and I'm the youngest by 8 or 9 years. Yeah. So I'm the one who didn't have too many responsibilities. I'm the one who's a little bit spoiled. So I think that I really changed. You know, my divorce and, you know, my illness and my father's death, that really helped to make me change and try to look at my life and assess my life. So yeah, that happened. But one thing that I'd like to mention, actually, when my father passed away and we were burying him, I was feeling an immense like level of sadness. You know, the culmination or the combination of all the different sadnesses of the problems that I was actually having. I literally thought that I never knew that kind of level of sadness existed. You know, I actually thought, how can I carry on? Like, not in a suicidal way, stuff at all.
Yeah, of course.
But I was feeling like, my God, this level of sadness is just like immense. Like, how do I get through this pain? You know, I've never knew someone could actually follow this pain, which is obviously a lot of hyperbole, because people have gone through things which are much more, you know, more difficult than myself. So one of the things that really helped me get through that period was just one brother that I saw who had attended my father's burial. And when I saw him, and he was a friend of mine, but only met him a few times, and I was quite surprised to see him, a lot of the sadness that I had for my father passing away had actually gone away. And that was simply because he was a person who converted to Islam from Sikhism. And I was thinking about his parents. I was thinking, subhanAllah, what about his parents? Like, they're not even Muslim. You know, alhamdulillah, it's a great, amazing blessing that my father, he's a Muslim. That is the most important, greatest ni'mah. Yeah. So after that moment, I'd made a pledge to myself that any single time that I go on Hajj, that I make dua for his parents. Not just him, but anyone who has converted to Islam, I always make like dua for the parents. Like, you know, like Ustadh Hamza, you know, other people that I know, because it's like the greatest, like there's a clip of Abu Tawbah. Do you remember Ustadh Abu Tawbah? Of him crying about his parents not being Muslim. It's really sad. It's
tough, because when you think about it and you think about your beliefs, it's very hard. It can definitely, it's definitely very hard. I think that's probably, I'm not a revert, but I'm sure from the outlook, that looks like the hardest thing for a revert. It's the fact that your parents aren't Muslim, your family, the closest people to you, aren't Muslims. And I mean, if you think about it, one of the things that I mentioned it in another podcast with Adam Speaks, I mentioned that the beauty of Islam is that it allows you to do things. There's always hope. So even if a close one passes away, like now yourself, just your sense of being is a sadaqah jariyah for your father.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. But the fact that you can't have that if your parents are not Muslim.
But for me, it was something different. And that was that I really want to meet my dad again. So if he gets to Jannah, inshallah, and I try to get to Jannah, we can meet again.
Inshallah,
But what happens to those?
Exactly.
It's really sad, man. Even thinking about it, it just makes me like, you know, it makes me shiver, you know. And I feel really, that's why I really make some effort whenever I'm on Hajj, that I make dua for, people who've converted to Islam.
I think we should all do that.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
I think that's really, really important to do, actually.
And I don't necessarily announce it. Like, I don't tell, except for that one brother. I always text him, said, "Oh, bro, I just made dua for your parents.
Yeah,
I made dua for your wife's parents as well, because she's also a Sikh convert as well."
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I don't announce it to there's loads of people on my contact list who converted to Islam. People that I know really well and others that I don't know that well, and I always make dua for them.
Allahu Akbar.
There was other things that happened. So I was working, like, the responsibility that I had at Kodak was, even though I wasn't really high up in the company, between me and the CEO were just two people. Like, my manager's manager was the CEO of Kodak.
Wow.
And I had to, like, do reports for her, for anyone in the organization who wanted reports. And those reports are really important, because if I made like a little, a few mistakes here and there, that it could cause problems, right, for their analysis and whatnot. Okay. So I noticed that I was just making these silly problems, and I don't understand, like, why. I'm one of those people. Like, I had the whole the company shoulders on, problems of the company on my shoulders, because I was, whenever you have like there's 2,000-3,000 employees, if they need like increase of their wages, which happens every single year, and bonuses and stuff, I was responsible for that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So alhamdulillah, I'm one of those people who don't get stressed out. Okay. It's very rare for me to get stressed out. And I'm generally quite chilled out. So even like my colleagues were like saying, like, my God, like, why don't you get like stressed out? Like, why are you not running around like a headless chicken and stuff? But alhamdulillah, it's I was making, not in this issue, but I was making a few mistakes here and there, like reports and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's going on? Like, this is crazy, because I'm generally quite pedantic about these things, right? And then I asked a relative of mine who's got dyslexia. And I asked her, I said, look, what issues are you having? Okay. And she's telling me all these things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I have those things as well. Yeah. So then I was worried I'm going to get the sack. Excuse me. And then what I did is that I needed to get a report proving whether I was dyslexic or not. And if it's not, then I have to try to find out what's the issue with me. Okay. So I had to drive like all the way to Oxford, because that was the only place I could go to where they had an available slot. Yeah. Had to pay this guy who's certified £400, right? Oh my God. And he said, you got dyslexia. Wow. But I have a very strange kind of dyslexia. It's related to my memory. It's related to, like, I when I write sentences, I tend to miss out a word. And then I have to sometimes read something 2 or 3 different times. And he was like saying, like, you got a degree and a master's, like, how did you get through that? And SubhanAllah. That's crazy. But I done another master's since. Wow. In Islamic Studies at SOAS, and alhamdulillah, I got a bit of support. And I've noticed that because of that support that I get, my grades have been much better than what I was getting in, when I did my master's and my degree initially. Okay. Yeah. Another thing, another thing that actually happened to me is that I nearly died as well during this period. Or at the very least, I could have had some major serious incidents, injuries. So I was attending like a course. It's basically like a maqra. Maqra means to recite. And there was a sheikh from Leicester, and his name Sheikh Ahmed Surti, who's passed away, rahimahullah. He had like the highest sanads, the highest chain of narration going back to Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, or one of the highest in the world. So we were either reciting to him or listening to him, and over a number of weekends, so we could actually get an ijazah of listening, getting the ijazah of Bukhari. So I was there staying one of the weekends. I was staying there the whole of the weekend, and I didn't realize the outdoor weather conditions. It was in the winter time. So when you have like these dual carriages, or these 2 lanes that end up going into the motorway. Yeah. So I was leaving from Leicester to go to London, and I got into a really serious accident because I was driving a little bit fast, and I was trying to avoid the car that was in front of me, and I ended up just going into the left ditch, and my car just flipped over. SubhanAllah. So the crazy thing is that first of all, I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Okay. My God. So that's not a good thing, right? I've changed since then. Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because your car was upside down, right?
Yeah, it's flipped. It's completely flipped. And then also, it wasn't my car either. It was a friend's car. He had actually left it with me to take care of whilst he goes and studies in Egypt. But alhamdulillah, he actually came up with a contract saying that if anything happens to my car, then you'll have to replace it, and this is the amount of money that you have to give me. Alhamdulillah, I paid that off.
Okay.
So let me show you the pictures, because yeah, it's pretty mad.
That's the one thing. Yeah, subhanallah. That's crazy. How did you get out?
So if you go around, if you actually look at the next picture, I had a sharh of Arba'in Nawiyya by Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah. That's on the outside of the car.
Yeah.
The windscreen, okay, it's the windscreen is a little bit scratched.
Yeah.
On the other side of the windscreen, I don't know how, because the windows were all closed. It's winter time.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how the car left the book left the car and got into the windscreen. I don't know how it happened. I was able to get out quite easily. I think
Really?
I was a little bit unconscious for a few seconds.
No way. So you blacked out?
Yeah, I blacked out. I tried to grab my phone, and I just got out, and I was more worried about the police. I thought I'm going to get banned from driving or something.
You know what I would be worried about most in that
What's
situation? I would be worried about
what your mum would say.
No. Probably my dad. And I would be more worried about the car, because I find that stressful. Like, oh, it's someone else's car now. I got to explain it to them. I got to pay them now.
Yeah, I feel embarrassed meeting the brother still. I'm still in contact with him.
No way.
Alhamdulillah, he was amazing about it. He was like saying, "Are you okay?" That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the
and
one
I paid
thing.
him straight away. Like I paid, I said, "Look, I'll pay you. It's not a problem, inshallah." And he was really cool about it.
Allahu Akbar.
So then I got out.
Yeah.
The police, alhamdulillah, they didn't do anything to me.
Okay.
Yeah, when someone's going through problems, you don't increase their problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they dropped me off to like a local hotel. I rang up like my nephew, told him, look, I got into a really bad crash. One of my best friends, he came with him.
Yeah.
And he didn't tell me. They came all the way. They came all the way to see me in the hotel. Because they found out that I didn't go to hospital. So they said, like, what the hell are you thinking? Right? What the hell are you thinking? So they take me to hospital. Yeah. And then I had a little scratch in the back, and on the back of my head, and that was it. Yeah.
So like the moral of all of this,
yes, there's something I forgot to tell you. This is really mad, right? My mother had a dream, okay? And my father came in that dream saying, go and check up on Asif, because I think he's in big trouble. So then my mother tells my sister about that dream. Go and check on Asif, because your dad came in the dream, and that's around the time that the crash happened.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how. Like I said, I don't know if this is the case with all my family members.
Yeah.
But for me, that actually happens. That actually, when I have a dream, then that kind of dream, it kind of happens. I've got like a crazy dream about Hajj. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Maybe.
Okay. Inshallah. Have you ever interpreted dreams?
No.
Okay.
I and people ask me, do I know anyone who can interpret dreams?
Yeah.
And I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lost science.
Yeah.
I don't know many people can interpret dreams.
Wow.
And it'll be good to know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so me hearing all of this, I think it's safe to say you went through a lot of life's problems in 1 year. These are some big problems that people go through in life, generally speaking. Sure. Divorce, death,
dyslexia, death again. Yeah, you nearly passed away, subhanallah. Yeah. The 4 Ds.
death, dyslexia. We have to put that in the title. We can talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, inshallah.
No, but I think that going through all of these things, one of the main things that stands out to me is, and I think the point where we want to drive this now is how to deal with your problems.
Yeah.
This was the whole point. I think you wanted to even share this. How do you deal with your problems? I think it's safe to say that in life, many of us go through big issues like this, and the problem is we don't know where to go. Did you at any point, this is like a quick question, did you at any point feel like, are my problems ever going to stop?
Yeah.
When you were going through that?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going through so much right now and it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that in the past, and I'll be honest, even I haven't known properly how to deal with this. Like, I'm going through problem, issue, and like, you know, like sometimes growing up you have like an issue, then there's a good time, then there's an issue, but like when you're going through like 10 issues like in 1 year,
Yeah.
how does a person deal with that mentally?
Yeah. I mean, alhamdulillah, I didn't have like a nervous breakdown, and I was actually quite depressed. Not clinically depressed, but depressed in the sense that I was really, really sad. And I even, I'm not sure whether I should share this or not. I even asked the Shaykh about this hadith. There's a hadith where the Prophet was reported as saying that if things get really difficult, then you can make dua for death. And I think I'd reached that stage. Like, I thought, I don't want to live anymore.
I'm not even surprised to hear that, because I think that these issues can be long lasting.
Yeah, of course. Like, for instance, divorce, there's a study, they say that divorce actually has permanent scars. Yeah, and they say that the four biggest things that stress you out is, I think it's in this order: divorce, death, moving house, and planning a marriage.
Moving house?
Yeah.
I just feel
it's stressful, man. It's stressful.
No, but
it's not that stressful.
on the level of death, like, come on.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I asked the Sheikh about this, and he, alhamdulillah, he's amazing. He really helped me out. He basically said, first of all, the hadith is weak, right? So don't even go there.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah, throughout this whole time, I never ever contemplated like suicide. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And I know that.
But a lot of people do.
Yeah, I get a lot of people. I mean, one thing that I really learned from this is being really empathetic. So, people who, there's a few people, for instance, when I was at university, a couple of people that I know who actually wanted to kill themselves, and they were committed to actually doing it. They really wanted to do it, and I just reached out to them, and I really tried to help them out as much as I can. I shared stuff with them that happened to me in my past that I would never share with anyone usually. And I was telling them, that inshallah there's, you don't know when the best day of your life is coming. Things are really dark now, but there will be something. There is actually, there's a hadith of Prophet ﷺ where the people who had gone through problems and calamities, they will be given in such incredible reward that people who didn't go through problems wish they had those problems, right?
Wow.
So the thing is that I kind of developed something during that period, and that is that, first of all, that very famous dua, that there's a couple of duas for sadness, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min wal hazan wal ajzi wal kasal, until the end, and there's another one which is a lot longer, Allahumma inni abduk, until the right. In that long dua, there is actually what is mentioned is that, oh Allah, make the Quran the spring of my heart.
Wow.
And the Quran is so powerful in being able to deal with your daily problems, and also these kind of issues.
Amazing.
And like, for instance, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ, that whoever turns away from my remembrance, from my dhikr, then their life will be in a state of misery, right? So someone who has a strong connection with the Quran, they won't get sad and depressed, right? And I'm not talking about clinical depression. Clinical depression is something different, where they have to get medical help and there may be a chemical imbalance and they need to take medication. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone who's in a real state of sadness, right? And this happened with Yaqub alayhi salam, right? That he وَبْيَضْ عَيْنَاهُ, right? That his eyes, that he became blind from the amount of crying that he did, right? Because of Yusuf alayhi salam who was taken away from him. So there's not like, but the point is that these things can be helped through the Quran, right? And there's one particular surah that I really reflected on, and it really helped me during this period. And that is a surah that was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ when he was actually at a very dark moment in his life. And that was when his son passed away.
Yeah.
He hasn't got any sons. All of his children are girls, and he wants a son. I've got 2 daughters, and I really want a son now, right? And the thing is that he his son passed away when he was when he was around 2 years old, and that is the cutest time when you have a child. When you have a child and they start to speak and they start to walk, it's like the cutest time that they are.
Yeah.
And that's when they start to recognize you, and you really bond with your child when they're around the age of 2. So Allah Jalla wa, rather than this being just a sad moment, it was a doubly sad moment because the mushrikeen, they were really happy at the passing away of the Prophet's son, and they started to announce it in the streets of Mecca. In particular, an individual by the name of Asif and Wa'il, and he said, "Huwa al-abtar," that the Prophet, he is cut off, his legacy will die, the religion of Islam will die because he's got no son to take it forward, because they have this understanding that your legend, your status will only continue through history, through your children, your descendants, who are effectively going to be your sons, because of the way that they treated girls at that period of time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him, that's very famous surah that all of us memorize, Surah Al-Kawthar. So I actually kind of did a lot of tadabbur on this surah, and I actually came up with like a mechanism on how to overcome sadness.
Okay.
So for instance, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, "Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar." Indeed, we have given you Al-Kawthar. And Al-Kawthar is a pond in paradise, a river in paradise, different interpretations. But that's the first thing that we need to do. We have to remember that this dunya is finite. It's going to last for 60, 70 years, if that. And Allah Jalla wa Ala, He puts us, and He gives us trials and tribulations, and He gives us some problems in order for us not to feel too comfortable in this life. And this is so important to understand. You know, we will not have a life except that there will be some issues in our life. And this is actually a reminder that don't get too comfortable in this life. You know, you are not here to live here forever. Your soul and you were created for another abode, for another house, and your house is written. Either it's written in paradise and it's written in hellfire. So we aim for that higher status, a higher station in paradise. So that's the first thing.
No.
You know, like if you look at the life of the Prophet, his life was just full of difficulties, man.
Yeah.
Full of, he never met his father. He lost his mother at the age of 6. He lost his grandfather, his next guardian, at the age of 8. He buried all of his kids, all of his children, except for one. Imagine having to bury each of your children except for one in your own lifetime. No one thinks that they're going to bury their child. Everyone thinks that your children are gonna outlive you. You know. And then on top of that, he had more than 10 assassination attempts on his life. But you know what? The most regular thing that he ever did, the most regular sunnah that the Prophet ever did, was to smile. You know, and that's so amazing. Like how he was able to deal with those kind of, adversity, those kind of adversities and those calamities and those trials, and how he was able to deal with it is just phenomenal.
I think I'm really happy we're talking about this, because I think it's very comforting for people going through such issues, especially the point you mentioned about Quran, about making the Quran the spring of your heart.
Yeah,
I think the Quran has a lot of solutions in it for you from a spiritual perspective, it can help your mental health, and even we have some of the I'm not sure if his statements or discourse, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they say that if a person spends their time focusing on the Quran to the extent where they forget to do their morning and evening adhkar for protection, that Quran will suffice them as protection.
Sure.
Because of the value of what they're reading. They're doing the best form of adhkar that there is, the words of Allah.
Yeah.
And even that person, the one who is like spending so much time to read the Quran and connect with it, even the du'as that he doesn't make, because of his busyness with the Quran, Allah will just grant that to him.
Sure.
And when you think about it like that, I think a lot of people, even you spoke about clinical depression, and people can go through a lot of big issues in their life where they're clinically labeled as something.
Yeah.
I am a depressed person.
Sure.
I am bipolar. I am this. Even if we bring it to mental health,
Sure.
these are big tests in people's lives.
Yeah.
When we put it to the perspective of, and I'm going to say it, and I know it's controversial, but you can find your solution in connecting with Allah and in Quran, because as Allah mentions in many places in the Quran, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. If Allah, and وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, Allah has power over all things. You think if Allah willed to take you out of this issue, you're not going to come out of this issue?
Sure.
Of course you are. No matter it's clinical, it's this, it's that. So it's like whatever you're going through in your life is as a result of, as you mentioned in the earlier, qadr.
Yeah.
And I think part of the belief in qadr is also believing that Allah is in control of that. And
But what I would say is, when it comes to clinical depression, I feel that obviously the Quran and dua are definitely going to help. Definitely going to help. But I don't necessarily feel, unless Allah wills it,
exactly, that's what I mean,
that it will necessarily solve the issue. These things are not necessarily reversed, right? So because, for instance, like, and I think that there's a discussion that's happening amongst some of the scholars as well, because some scholars basically say that, you know, you can get these things resolved, your mental health issues which have been diagnosed by a professional, that they can be kind of sorted out just from the Quran. Yes, if Allah wills.
That's if Allah wills,
But the thing is, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go and see the specialist.
Of course not. Of course not. That clarification the reason needs to be there.
Because I feel that, you know, because I feel that this is a misunderstanding.
No, definitely, and I think a lot of people do misunderstand this a lot. We're not saying, oh yeah, just read the Quran, it's gonna solve all of your issues, but it is a big solution for you. If Allah wills, it can.
Like, so for instance, I'll give you an example. There's one sister that I know. She is actually, I think she's got bipolar, and she's going through a lot of problems in her life. And she told me, or she said, on one of her social media accounts, she said that one of the things that really helps her, which is really interesting because you have to experiment. You know, part of ruqya is a lot of his tajarrub, is like experimentation, like certain verses, they work for a person more than another person and whatnot. She said the thing that really helps her in terms of being able to overcome some of the problems that she's going through in mental health is durood. She said that it really helps her, sending, you know, greetings and salutations upon the Prophet. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi. So these kind of things, they definitely help.
Subhanallah. How can people practically deal with these issues now? Like, speaking from, not saying that the Quran isn't practical. Of course, connecting with the Quran, reading it, understanding it, these are things that are extremely encouraged in our tradition. But like, what are other things, for example, that you done that significantly helped you like really get past this?
So the first thing is, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, indeed we have given you al-kawthar. So think about the hereafter, don't just focus on the dunya. The second thing is fasalli li rabbik, right? And that is a prayer. Hudayfa ibn Yaman radiyallahu anhu, he said that whenever the Prophet ﷺ was going through problems, difficulty in his life, he'd always just hit the mat. He would just go and he would actually just go and pray. Because when you pray, you're communicating with Allah Jalla wa Ala. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said that whenever I was thinking of a mas'ala, an issue that I couldn't be able to solve, I would pray, and in the sajda I would make dua, sometimes 1,000 times, sometimes more, just, oh Allah, open my mind to this issue. So I think the prayer is so important, of being able to resolve and trying to kind of like lessen the sadness that a person goes through. The third thing is wanhar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Wanhar means to sacrifice a camel or an animal and give it to charity. So that's another thing as well. Some of the scholars of the past, they said whenever you're having a problem, dig up a well.
Wow.
There's one man, he came to Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahimahullah, and he said to him, he said, I've got an ailment in my leg, I've got a problem with my leg. What shall I do? He said, dig up a well. And so that you are benefiting people and you're giving water to other people. And subhanallah, that problem went away for this person. And this happened to one of my cousins. This is a relative of mine. He said that he'd read so many of these narrations and he was going through problems, and alhamdulillah, he's quite well off, went to see some specialists. They couldn't kind of like help him out on the problem that he was having with his leg. He went and he basically bought, facilitated for a well to be built, and those medical problems that he had, they just went away. So I don't, many of the scholars, they say this. They say that if you want to decrease your bala, if you want to kind of like get rid of your trials and your tribulations, then just give sadaqah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And I'm sure there's going to be loads of people who can relate to this. I personally, same with me. I've going through problems, and generally, I don't know, if this happens to all families, but certainly my family and a lot of Pakistani families I know, when they're going through problems, they said, oh, let's just sacrifice. We'll send a message to Pakistan and get like a goat or a cow sacrifice, so we can give it out to the poor people. So these kind of things, they're really important.
That means a lot to me, actually, because once I was going through an issue, my mum told me to give charity, actually, and I'd done it. But like, when you hear like a dalil for it, like an evidence for it, it strengthens you even more. because she just said it. I think she just said it as a generic thing, and I think it's something that worked for her in the past. Subhanallah, it's crazy that you're mentioning this, and now like you're actually hearing proper references for that as a thing. So I think with these things alone, it can really help you to get over these serious issues that you're doing, and also just, I guess, staying steadfast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To do all of these things, you know, one of the things that I was doing during that period when I was quite sad, is that I was just constantly just going. I was going to like 2 circles a week, and I was giving 4 circles a week.
Wow.
Yeah, and then and I was just busy with, you know, different stuff. I was at that point I was doing like a lot of martial arts and stuff. So I was you know, it's important to keep busy, to be productive, to do things consistently. And actually find that within teaching itself, that you learn more than what you're actually, you know, conveying to someone. Because when I would prepare for lessons, it would take me 4 or 5 hours. So it'd take me an hour to get to work, and then I was on the bus typing away in the back, and then I'd just be preparing for my lessons. And then you actually learn just incredible stuff, and I actually find that there's an incredible delight, an incredible dunyawi reward that you get from learning and teaching. I love learning and I love teaching as well. So I think that that really, you know, it really helps.
Definitely.
The fourth thing, because there's one verse that's remaining from Surah Al-Kawthar, is Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar, that the one who is doing evil towards you, they will be cut off. From a tafsir perspective, is beautiful, because the one who is doing evil to the Prophet ﷺ was this Asib and Wa'il, Abu Jahl and others. And what's incredible about the ones who said the Prophet ﷺ was cut off is that they were cut off.
Allahu Akbar.
Asib and Wa'il, his name was Amr ibn al-As, right? He became a companion, and the legacy of his father died out because his son became Muslim. Abu Jahl, what was his son's name? Ikrama ibn Abi Jahl. He was one of the greatest enemies. His son became Muslim, right? So the lesson that we can take from this final verse is that whoever's causing you harm, it may be that, you know, this thing that a person's doing to you, just forget about them. You know when Nelson Mandela came out of jail, he said, the hatred that I had for the people who put me in jail, I just left it in the jail, because if I were to carry that along with me throughout my rest of my life, it's like I'm still in jail. Right. And people have to, if it's like, for me, it was like, you know, I'm not to blame. I was blaming myself. I was blaming the guy, the doctor who didn't call the ambulance. You can blame 100 people, right? And it doesn't make anything any better. So you have to let go. Unfortunately, we don't let go of things. And I feel that this is really important for bringing about a transformation. What I mean by transformation is, how do you change yourself? You know, some psychologists, clinical psychologists, they said something really interesting. They said in order to bring about a change in your life, you have to go through suffering. Because if you're always in a comfortable situation, then why is there need for you to bring about a transformation in your life, right? Interestingly, others have also said that it's transformation is like going to the sacred. It's like a pilgrimage, which is really interesting, because when someone goes on Hajj, then it's like they are transformed, right? But before we talk about Hajj, because I know that you want to talk about Hajj, right? How do you transform yourself? The first thing is that a lot of people, the mistake that they make when they're living their life is that they drag their past into the future, and they have to stop doing that. They have to put a stop to that and say, no, I want to create a future for myself. And also, one of the things that I feel that people need to do is that they need to discover themselves. They need to understand why are they the way that they are. So, for instance, I started to ask myself, you know, why am I the way that I am? And sometimes it's good to do that for positive things, so you can carry that on, and also to do it for negative things. So for instance, like I said, I was the youngest of 5 children. You know, I wasn't just brought up by my parents, I was also brought up by my brothers and sisters. I was a little bit spoiled because I'm the youngest. I didn't have too many responsibilities, but I want to change that about myself. I started taking on more responsibilities for myself. You know, family problems, I'm there trying to help to solve those issues. Whenever anyone's going through problems, you know, I'm trying to be more responsible in kind of dealing with those things. But the point is that you are the way that you are because something that's happened to you in your life, right? Either through environment or through experience. So how do you change that, or how do you transform that about yourself so that you're no longer like that, so you can actually carve up a better future for yourself? For me, it was a dream of mine for the last 10 years. When I was working at Kodak, people would say, you know, Asif, what do you want to do? Like, do you see yourself like doing this your whole life? I said, no, I want to do a PhD. So this is something that's been in my mind for 10 years. And I just didn't know how to do that. But if you have like a particular vision, you have to force that vision to come to fruition. You have to like, for instance, how am I going to do a PhD?
Yeah.
And like, you know, when I'm
working in Kodak.
Yeah, working at Kodak. Yeah, because first of all, in order to do a PhD in Islamic Studies, which I wanted to do it in, I needed to get a master's because I've got no qualification in Islamic Studies.
Yeah.
I only studied traditionally, you know, in Mauritania and Egypt and Qatar with scholars and whatnot, but and the UK. But I've not got a certificate. In order to do a PhD, you need to have a master's. So I was like thinking, how am I going to do a master's as well as working? Right? It's not possible. So I had to kind of like do maneuvers and do things in order to make that happen.
Allahu Akbar. I think your story is really, really inspirational, and I think what you're saying, should it be acted upon, I think it can really, really change people's lives. I genuinely think that. I think these things are enough to change people's lives. I think people shrug these sort of things away just because they feel like they want a quick fix.
Yeah.
And I don't think that exists for problems that people go through. I really don't think that exists. Moving on, actually, you know, and this is like one of the main things you also wanted to speak about, Hajj. You've been on Hajj now a few times, to say the least, you know. What was your favorite experience of going on Hajj? What was your favorite Hajj that you've done? Because you've done it like, I'm sure you've done it more than 5-6 times. This is me coming from myself, so you didn't say it. What was your favorite Hajj? Yeah,
so just to give you a background regarding Hajj, like one of the things, and this goes back to determination and it goes back to taking more responsibilities. My father, rahimahullah, he would take my mother and myself on Umrah every single year for the whole of Ramadan.
Okay.
So we'd hire out a flat in Mecca, and then we just stay there and we go to Medina and whatnot, and we spend every single year. He did this for like 20-25 years. So now that my father passed away, like, who's going to take my mum? So I kind of like took that responsibility. So every single year I go with my mum, and I take my wife and my 2 kids as well, every single year on Umrah. And that's really, really important for me. It's like, I have to go. Like, if I haven't gone, then there's something missing in my life. In actual fact, I know it sounds crazy, but I don't even like to look at the TV where it's got the Kaaba, because my heart just wants to be there. It's like when you see something, you really want it, you can't have it. That's why I know it sounds really strange, but I don't like looking at, you know, the when they show the prayers and whatnot on these channels. But I wanted to, like, I was thinking, like, how do I beat my father? First of all, that's the legacy that I've kind of carried on from my father. When you talk about Sadaqah Jariyah, that's what I got from my dad. But how do I beat my father? He's done like Umrah like 20-25 years, the whole of Ramadan. And obviously that's Hajj, right? And I had it in my mind, like, I really, really, really want to go on Hajj. And I want to do it regularly. How do I make it happen? Again, it's just like I needed to force a way or a solution on how to make that happen. But the most interesting, but it all started off actually with my most favorite Hajj. So I've done Hajj, before that time I'd done Hajj like 2-3 times, a couple of times. And then one of my friends, he basically said, Asif, let's go on Hajj together. But let's do like a walking Hajj. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we're not going to stay in the hotels. We're not going to stay in the tents, in the Mina tents.
That's crazy.
We're going to stay in one of our friends' house who lives in Azaziyah, which is very close to Mina. Yeah. And we're going to basically do everything by foot, which was ideal for me because I couldn't take 2 or 3 weeks off from work, from Kodak at that time. Yeah. And I did the whole of that Hajj in 10 days, which you can't do in any Hajj package, because I think the smallest period or the shortest period for Hajj is 2 weeks. 2 weeks, right? Yeah. So I said, yeah, cool. So flew in, and it's really complicated, right? Because you're not allowed to do this, right? You're not allowed to do this. And one of my friends, he gave the passport. He had a lot of experience with Hajj. It was like with 2 or 3 of my best friends as well. And we just did a walking Hajj. We walked everywhere. We had like 20-30 kgs on our rucksack. And we were just walking everywhere. We got our own tents from millets. We stayed in Mina. We stayed in one of the mountains, right? We actually climbed up one of the mountains. We stayed in the mountains and we just stayed there for like the whole of the time. there's one of my friends who lives in Jeddah who does Hajj every year as well.
That's crazy.
And we said to him, like, come and find us. This guy is really interesting. This guy, every year I do Hajj, he finds us. I don't know how he finds me, but he finds me because there's so many thousands of like Muslims there. He finds me wherever I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
So anyway, he found us. We told him where he was, but he found us in the mountain. And we told him, since you're coming from Jeddah, can you bring us some al-baik as well? So he brought us al-baik. We're having like al-baik on the mountain.
That's crazy.
But it was incredible, amazing
Akbar.
Hajj. And we did our own dhabiha as well. We went to a farm in Makkah and we did our own, we slaughtered our own goats. We ate from that meat as well, which is from the sunnah.
Yeah.
So we were able to do loads of things, loads of sunnahs that a lot of Hujjaj don't get to do because of the practicalities and the kind of logistics that doesn't really allow it. But for me, Hajj is just amazing. Like, Hajj is really, again, a really, really important part of my life. And subhanAllah, I had a really interesting story that happened just this year. So what I tend to do is I tend to do Hajj and Umrah on people's behalf, right? So when someone I know who's passed away, or someone who's very close to me, who's impacted me, someone that I really love, I'll do Hajj on their behalf, right? Someone who's passed away. So there was a feeling, I was telling you that I have a feeling that sometimes comes true. So there was this one uncle that I used to live in the area that I used to live in. I had a feeling that I hadn't seen him for some time. I had a feeling that he passed away. So I kind of had it in my mind that I'm going to make Hajj on this person's behalf. And even if he's alive, no problem, because I know that he can't do Hajj, right? And I'll do it on his behalf. So anyway, subhanAllah, I was working for a Hajj and Umrah company. Qaddarullah, his nephew does Hajj with us, right? And his wife. And I said to like, how's uncle? Is he okay? Expecting him to say that, that he's passed away. So he said, no, he's alive, alhamdulillah, he's all good. But, he's, still in the same situation that he is. He says, okay, I want you to pass on a message to him. Don't pass it on to anyone else, just for him, right? That I'm going to do Hajj on his behalf. So I do Hajj on his behalf. And I think that was like the summertime. I find out that 5 or 6 months later, he passes away. Yeah, 5 or 6 months later, he passes away. So this is about 5 or 6 years ago. Then what happens is that I do Hajj and I meet that uncle's son on Hajj. And he's doing Hajj on his mother's behalf, who can't do Hajj because of medical health issues, right? And he told me some like crazy story. He says that, you remember when you did Hajj for my dad? And in actual fact, he rang me like a month after his father passed away. And he said, look, Asif, I want to do Hajj on my dad's behalf. And I said, look, don't worry about it, I've already done it. He said, what, you already done it? I said, yeah, I already done it, don't worry about it. So we're having a conversation like just last Hajj gone. And he said, when you rang me, at that time, my sister had a dream that our father was in ihram. And she said, I can't understand, like, why is my dad wearing ihram?
Yeah.
And then he says, guess what? Asif, my friend, he did Hajj on our dad's behalf. So it's just crazy. Like, maybe you can add to, was it death? Was it dyslexia, depression? And then you can talk about dreams as well. You can add dreams to that as well.
Yeah. Driving dangerous.
Oh God. Yeah.
Subhanallah. No, I think Hajj is a life-changing journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had the privilege of doing Hajj this last year that went. And alhamdulillah, it was amazing. And I basically done like a walking one as well. So, I did only for the first day of Hajj. On the 8th, we stayed in Yom al-Tarwiyah, we stayed in at night in Mina. Other than that, we just done it walking now. Like,
amazing.
we're just walking back to Mina, spending the night there, just chilling, doing a thing. And it was just beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. That's what we done for Ayyam al-Tashriq as well. It was amazing. And I think it's something that you could definitely get used to doing every year.
Yeah.
If Allah gives you the ability to do it.
But every year, I don't know how I do it. Like, every year, there's an element of pain, like physical pain I can take.
Yeah.
When someone's like when I used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it would be very difficult to tap me out because I would take a lot of pain.
Yeah.
I've got a high threshold for like physical pain, not emotional pain, but physical pain.
Yeah.
But sometimes my legs are like really killing me. I'm like thinking to myself, like,
This
how
is
am I going to
crazy.
do this next
Yeah,
year?
yeah.
And you know what? Allah just makes it easy.
That's
man.
what I would. That's what because I have like I want to try and do as much as I can, inshallah. And I was thinking this last year. How would I do this again? This is like one of the.
Yeah, it's
I know
difficult.
like a person who would go there. I know how people, because some people see it like this. It's done. Okay,
That's
I've
it.
got it out of the way.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
most people.
Yeah, I think like even 90%, maybe 95% of people see it like that. Okay, we've done it. We've done the obligation. Don't need to come back here
Yeah.
for Hajj. And yeah, I just think because even before I went for the first time, it's weird. I had it as an intention that I want to do this more than once.
Yeah.
I just want to be like one of those people that you speak to them. Oh, I've done Hajj 3 times, 4 times, like that. I don't want to be the one-time person thing. So no, honestly, I think if everyone watching out there, if you get the opportunity to go for Hajj, or if you have the money, you need to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people talk about it from the obligation perspective, not even from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Just from the spiritual perspective, experience.
Because for me, Hajj is basically a preparation for the Day of Judgment. It's basically we're in a play, right? And we're in a play of the Day of Judgment, except that, it's like a dress rehearsal for the Day of Judgment, except the actors are different, right? And it's just like, alhamdulillah, I've taken, I was even thinking of taking my kids with me, like next year. I can't afford to take my kids, right? And it's more difficult. But, alhamdulillah, I've taken my wife, and she's like, she wants to go with me, like, and I'm like, I can't afford it, But the thing is it's just something that is just out of this world, It's a journey from the hereafter. When you go on Hajj, it's like the past, present, future, it all comes in this one time. And you're just basically at that one moment in time when you're doing Hajj, it just all comes together. And for me, it's just like the most incredible journey that anyone can make. But what makes it interesting for me is that I do the background stuff as well. So I've done every single role in Hajj. I've done the maktabs, which is the most horrible job, dealing with the passports, when the passports go missing. I've done like the announcements. More recently, in the last few years, I've been doing the kind of the more Ustadh role, which is like, answering questions and so it's some of the funniest questions. There's one question that came up, right? There's one brother I found out that when he was doing Miskeen, man, when he was doing tawaf, when you have to start the tawaf from the black stone.
Yeah.
He was doing it from Maqam Ibrahim. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what are you doing? But I think there was a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
so maybe but you get the funniest question.
You see a lot of funny things on Hajj. You see, let me tell you a funny story from Umrah I went on. Just one thing, because Mohsin's killing me. He's saying we need to finish, Just one thing. Seriously, this is a worth it story, So I'm on Umrah and going around the Kaaba. This is in Ramadan as well, last 10 days. Going around the Kaaba, doing tawaf. This sister comes up to me, and this is a big misconception. It's permissible for you to wear footwear when you're doing tawaf. There's nothing wrong with it. You can do it. Now, the sister comes up to me and she says to me in Arabic, "Hada la yajuz." This is not allowed. And she's getting angry at me, and I just calmly, because you're obviously doing Umrah, calmly said to her, "Yajuz, it's not a problem. Just go easy on me." So she's not leaving me alone now. And there's like another Saudi brother with his wife doing tawaf. He says to her, "It's fine. It is permissible. It's okay. Let him do it." So I'm just trying to ignore her, but she's not having it. So then she starts touching me. And she's saying, "This is not allowed. This is not allowed." And after I'd done Umrah, I just ignored her. And I said, "You know what? Let me just take them off." After I've done Umrah, you know what I thought? I was thinking about the situation. I thought, she's telling me it's not allowed for me to have my shoes on. Her touching me is not allowed.
Yeah, of course.
She's touching me, shaking me about. She's saying it's not allowed for you to have your shoes on. But it's probably worse that she's touching me. It is worse, in fact.
Yeah, of course.
So it was like really, really hilarious. The point being is you see a lot of funny things and crazy experiences when you're on Hajj and Umrah. I mean, there's way more that I've got. But I think we'll leave it for a future episode, inshallah. Subhanallah. On that note, Ustadh Asif, Jazakallah khair for coming on the podcast. And on that note, brothers and sisters, I really, really hope that you benefit from everything that Ustadh Asif had to share. I think this is a very, very important episode, especially if you're going through some serious issues in your life. These are some of the practical steps that you can take, inshallah. And also try and speak to someone like Ustadh Asif. I'm sure you can find him online. You can find his Twitter where he's got a lot of jokes going on. And other than that, we will see you on the next episode of ReRooted. Make sure you follow us on all of the platforms that we're on. iERA.org on Instagram. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, inshallah. We'll see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace.